I first saw the text at 2:13 a.m., a blinking notification on my phone that felt like a punch to the gut. It was from my fiancée, Clara. 3 simple words, but they rattled me like an earthquake. "We need to talk." I stared at them so long my thumb almost crumpled the screen before I could bring myself to reply. "Are you okay?" I tapped back, heart hammering. Then another message arrived. "Meet me at Jake's place." Now Jake, my brother, the man I trusted more than anyone besides my parents. I swallowed a tide of dread and slipped into my jeans, not even pausing to brush my hair. Outside, the late winter air bit at my face as I fumbled for my keys. My mind raced through every possible scenario, none of them good enough. When I reached Jake's loft, the lights were on, high and bright, as if someone had thrown the bulbs directly into the ceiling. I climbed the short iron staircase, each step echoing hollowly off the metal. At the top, I saw her first Clara's profile in the doorway, posture tight, back rigid as a rifle, and then I saw him, Jake, leaning against the kitchen counter, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the floor. The intercom buzzed behind me, but I didn't notice. "What's going on?" I asked, voice low and wary. He didn't look up. She exhaled like someone releasing a held breath. "It's not what you think," she began, but I knew better. "You slept with her," I said, cutting across her half-sentence. My stomach twisted so sharply, I nearly lurched forward. Jake looked up at last, his eyes hollow. "It just happened," he muttered. One thing led to another. The words felt obscene, like a stain on everything I'd built. I turned to Clara, who was trying to muster compassion in her gaze but couldn't. "How could you?" I whispered. "On the brink of our wedding?" She looked away, bite trembling on her lower lip. "I'm sorry," she said, but the syllables floated uselessly in the kitchen light. I wanted to vomit. For a moment I thought I would, so I leaned against the doorframe. The world spun absurdly. My fiancé and my brother together, and I was the clown who'd missed all the clues. The stolen glances, the unexplained texts on Jake's phone, the nights she'd turned up at my place at odd hours claiming insomnia, I'd dismissed them. She'd lied. He'd betrayed me. My head buzzed as I stumbled backward, nearly colliding with the living room table. "Get out," I managed. Voice raw. "Both of you. Just go." They lingered like guilt personified. He rubbed his neck. "Matt, please." I recognized his voice from years ago, the one he used when he was hurt, wine riding beneath the sorrow. "No," I said. "Not until I say you can." Slowly they filed out, Clara's shoulders hunched, Jake's hands shoved deep into his pockets. I closed the door behind them, flicked the lock, and slumped against the wood, the echo of betrayal roaring in my ears. The next morning, I woke to the ache of broken trust, twisting in my chest. My phone glowed with messages I hadn't sent. "I love you. Let's work this out." I deleted them all. Then I called my boss, pretending to be sick. My career at Langley & Pierce, a boutique litigation firm I'd built from intern to senior associate in 5 years, had been everything. I'd poured nights into briefs, defended clients against odds I sometimes only barely believed, but the cold light of reality had stripped away any illusion of control. My world outside that loft door had shifted on its axis, and I felt dizzy with grief and anger. I showed up at the office 2 days later, black coffee in hand, ready to dive into emotion, to lose myself in legalese. Instead, I found a folder on my desk: internal review, due diligence report, client complaints. My boss, Miranda, asked to see me in her office. Behind her desk, she looked uncomfortable, like she was about to tell me my dog had run away. "We need to talk about these items," she began, sliding the folder across. "There's concern about your recent cases. Missed deadlines, emails not returned, witness statements unverified." The partners, she bit her lip. The partners at Langley & Pierce had always been my champions. I closed my eyes. "I've been dealing with some personal issues," I said. "I can." She held up a hand. "I'm sorry about what you're going through, but our clients expect excellence. I'm afraid we'll need to put you on probation, effective immediately." Probation, a polite word to string me along before they terminated me. I nodded numbly, excuses lodged in my throat, unspoken. Back at my desk, I rifled through that folder. Among the memos and performance evaluations was an anonymous complaint, someone claiming I'd committed an ethical breach in my last case. I recognized the details, the case number. It couldn't be real. The complaint referenced client communications I hadn't made. Someone was out to get me. Then I remembered those days when Jake had offered to help with my workload, for old time's sake, and insisted on shadowing me at the firm's holiday party. I had welcomed the respite, never imagining the danger. My phone buzzed with a text. "You're burnt. You need to rest." Read the anonymous number. Beneath it, a link to a legal ethics forum where my name was trending among questions about misconduct. The screenshots I saw made blood roar in my ears. Someone had fabricated an exchange with a client, suggesting I'd leaked confidential info. In the eyes of the law, that was career suicide. I dropped the phone onto the desk so hard it bounced. My coffee sloshed over the folder. I sat back, head in my hands. My brother had used my vulnerability to stage this attack. My betrayal was complete. First my fiancé, then everyone I'd worked so hard to impress. Late that night, I returned to the loft we shared. Mine Clara's place, now hollow. The door swung open to an emptiness, so loud I froze on the threshold. I flicked on the light, the couch untouched, our photos removed from the mantel, my gym bag by the front door. She'd taken everything that tied her to me. On the coffee table sat a single envelope, my name typed in her looping script. Inside a terse note, "I'm sorry, I can't be the woman you need. Goodbye." No hallmark moment, no flourish, just a door slammed with a note left behind. I crunched it in my fist until it tore. 4 days later, the firm called. "We've completed our review. We're terminating your employment, effective immediately. Please return your keys." I walked out of Langley and Pierce with a cardboard box, empty except for a Keystone brief and a half-eaten granola bar. I felt like I was wearing someone else's skin as I carried it to my car, parked too far away to avoid the pitying stares. My phone lay silent. My brother's number glowed in my mind, but I didn't want his apology, if apology it was. That night, I drove to the railroad tracks behind my apartment. Steam fogged the windows as I remembered the first time I took Jake to see a train pass by. He was 4, breath pressed to the glass, squealing. I parked on the gravel and sat in the hush, engine idling. The city lights flickered in the distance, but here I could almost feel the thrum of something else, a heartbeat beneath the tracks. My career, my fiancé, my brother's trust, all gone. I closed my eyes and imagined the moment a train's horns split the silence, a reckoning rushing toward me. My phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. I glanced down an address, and one line of text, "Meet me if you want to save what's left." My pulse spiked, the lamp of possibility flickered. I thought of the evidence on Jake's phone, the recordings I'd made months ago when I'd suspected nothing but wanted proof for my own peace of mind. I thought of Clara's note, the random absence of remorse, and then I thought, whatever this was, it might be the last lifeline I have. I planted my palms on the steering wheel, pushed back my shoulders, and exhaled. The night air felt electric as I dialed the unknown number. The line clicked, then a voice low and familiar. "You're braver than you look, brother." My blood ran cold. "Jake?" I whispered. For a moment I thought I'd misheard, until he laughed, that same crooked grin he wore as a kid when he'd swiped my candy and blamed me for losing it. "If you want to turn the tables, meet me here. Midnight, bring everything you've got. It's time for the final act." I stared at the screen, heartbeat echoing, betrayal, ruin, and now, this. The train tracks blurred in the headlights, the rails gleaming like a challenge. I gripped the wheel with white knuckles. Fog drifted up, curling around the car like a shroud. Outside, the world held its breath. My brother had set the stage. He thought he'd destroyed me, but he didn't know that my next move would be one he never saw coming. I eased out of the car and let the door thud shut behind me, key turning in the ignition, like the final click of a gun being cocked. The tracks stretched in front of me, steel ribbons disappearing into darkness, the gravel a jagged moat between where I stood and where Jake would appear. My breath hitched in little white pulses. Midnight, the witching hour. The time for reckoning. I checked the envelope in my coat pocket. Clipped to it was the evidence I'd spent the last week assembling. Recordings of Jake's texts, copies of Clara's note, transcripts from the PI who'd followed him on every Uber ride, receipts for the forged complaint he'd filed at the firm. Even the audio of me confronting him in his car last month, when he'd tried to talk me down after I'd suspected something was up. I had every misstep, every lie, every self-serving excuse spelled out in black and white. I'd left no room for denial. A shiver ran down my spine as I walked the length of the gravel embankment, footsteps crunching like bones underfoot. The cold air smelled of rusted metal and winter rot. Ahead, a lamppost flickered, one lone bulb buzzing in a yellow halo. I reached it, set the envelope on top, and waited. 15 minutes passed like an eternity. I checked my watch, 12:15 a.m. A freight train whined in the distance, but it didn't draw any closer. I willed myself not to pace. My phone was useless. I'd burned the bridge with every contact I had. No calls, no messages, no clean escape route. Jake had lured me here to this no man's land, expecting to finish me off. I intended to finish him first. A shadow detached itself from the black swath beyond the tracks. Jake moved toward me, hands shoved into the pockets of his leather jacket, face pale in the streetlight. His breath came in quick huffs, like he'd been running. "Matt," he said, voice low. "You came." "Of course I came," I said, folding my arms over my chest to trap heat. My voice came out rough, brittle. "You're the one who sent the message." He paused halfway to me. "I knew you'd show. You always did what you thought was right, too nice for your own good." He exhaled, a smoky plume in the lamp glow. "So here we are," I nodded. "Yeah, here we are." I glanced at the envelope. "Before we go any further, I want to give you a chance. You can walk away right now. You can confess to Mom and Dad. You can tell them why you sabotaged me, why you slept with her. You can tell them you framed me at the firm, and watch your own house of cards collapse." His jaw clenched. "I'm not that stupid," his voice wavered, cracked. "They'll all believe you over me." "Of course they will," I said softly, "because I'm always the good son, always the one who played by the rules." I stepped closer to the tracks, adrenaline flooding my veins. "But tonight, that changes." He shook his head, eyes glittering. "You think you've got me cornered? That envelope cloned evidence, fake transcripts. You rigged that complaint yourself to frame me. Everything you've done this week, you're the one who's guilty." A shockwave hit my chest. I inhaled. His words were wrong, so wrong, but they carried a ring of desperation. "You really believe that?" I asked, tone level. "So you're claiming that the PI's photos of you with Claire Morgan in Suite 312 are fake, and that the text messages between you and Clara were photoshopped?" Jake's face crumpled with rage and fear. He took a step back. I don't care what you think. This was about me taking what was mine." I blinked, trying to focus through the haze. "You mean what was mine? You slept with my fiancée, then you destroyed my career. That's what was yours." He sucked in his breath. "She was mine. We had something real." I laughed, and it sounded like a broken crow. "Real? There's nothing real about betrayal." I tugged the envelope free and dropped it to the gravel. Papers fanned out, photographs, printouts, transcribed voicemails. I kicked the envelope so it spilled every sheet across the tracks. "Look." He followed the papers with his eyes. "Just garbage," he muttered. "You can manipulate evidence. You're a lawyer. You know how." I leaned down, picked up one of the photographs, slid it under his nose. It showed him hand in hand with Claire Morgan, the second woman he'd tried on me. The marketing exec he'd used to blackmail me into silence. Jake's second affair. 2 secrets, I said. 2 women. And then you framed me for leaking case information. I pointed to another sheet, the complaint I'd found in my personnel folder stamped ethics violation. "This is your handwriting on the complaint. You fabricated it. Proof that you're willing to destroy your own brother's life." Jake flinched, mouth opening and closing. That's forged. I didn't do that." My voice dropped to a whisper. "You did. You gave them the complaint on company letterhead. Convinced them that I'd told the press about the Henderson trial. You made sure my boss put me on probation, then fed the rumor mill so my clients fled." I straightened, letting my fury show. "You wanted me broken. You got what you wanted." He stared at the papers at his feet, face pale, then his eyes flicked to the tracks, and a train's horn moaned in the distance. "You'd do this to me?" His voice was raw. "You'd ruin your own brother?" I closed my eyes, breath shaking. "I would do anything to get my life back." The train's horn grew louder. The tracks vibrated underfoot. "But I'm not going to kill you." I watched his shoulders relax, half relieved. Instead, I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out my phone. "I recorded everything just now," I said, tapping the recorder app. "Your confession, this conversation, the evidence you couldn't deny." I'm sending it to Mom and Dad, to Clara, to my boss at Langley and Pierce, to the State Bar Association. Everyone who matters will see tomorrow what you are. I pressed the send button. He staggered back, horror in his eyes. No, Matt, please, don't do this. I dropped the phone and raised my foot. You have one chance to set the record straight, or I publish everything. The wind picked up, rattling the empty rails. Jake's face twisted in remorse, fury, desperation. He took a stumbling step forward, arms raised as if to block the coming blow. I'm sorry, he gasped. I'm so sorry. At that moment, the train lurched into sight, headlamps carving ribbons through the dark. Its horn bellowed, drowning out Jake's apology. Gravel rattled under its wheels. Momentum surged toward us like a living thing. I froze. The train thundered past, too fast to even see through the blur, its roar blasting away the last traces of my anger. When it passed, all that remained was silence, a low groan of cooling metal. The papers on the tracks lay scattered, ruffled like fallen petals. Jake sagged against the lamppost, eyes wild. What now? He whispered. I stood tall, shaking off the residual adrenaline. Now, I said, voice steady. I rebuild, but not the way you think. I patted the envelope on the post. I'm not going to press charges yet. I'm giving you a chance to make amends. Call Clara. Apologize. Own up to Claire Morgan. Tell Mom and Dad yourself before they see these files. Then go see a therapist. Then go back to work at your marketing firm and face the truth of who you are. He closed his eyes, head bowed. And if I don't, I shrugged. Then the State Bar will have their report. Langley and Pierce will have theirs. Your wife. I paused, letting the weight of the word land. She'll know everything. He clenched his fists. You're going to destroy me. I slid my hand into my pocket, fingers brushing a small envelope. I already have, I said, but I'll let you put yourself back together, if you're willing to do the work. He stood in silence, the lampost's yellow glow haloing him like a spotlight on a stage. The wind curled around us, rustling the loose pages at our feet. Finally, he nodded once, slowly. Okay, he whispered. Okay, I exhaled, tension draining. Then good night, Jake. I turned away and started down the embankment, leaving him under the lamppost, clutching his own shattered pride. Gravel crunched under my boots, swift and deliberate, like proof that I was moving forward. 2 days later, I sat in my old office at Langley and Pierce. The partners, all 6 of them, were assembled around the conference table, faces grim. At the head sat Miranda, arms folded in front of her. My heart thudded as I cleared my throat. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting, I began. My voice was steady, the calm of someone who had rehearsed the moment in his head 100 times. I understand there was an ethics complaint filed against me. It turned out to be a forgery, orchestrated by my brother. I apologize for any confusion and wasted time. I reached into my jacket pocket and placed a sheaf of documents on the table. The forged complaint, Jake's handwritten confession, printed emails. Here's the proof. Miranda's lips parted. Matt, please, I said, holding up one hand. Allow me. I looked each partner in the eye. I was unfairly placed on probation. My clients were frightened away by false rumors. My professional reputation was nearly destroyed. I paused, letting my words sink in. But I refused to let a liar dictate the course of my life. I nodded to Miranda. I'm back. I want my position reinstated, the probation lifted, and my record cleared. There was a long, taut silence. Then one partner, Samuel Pierce, founder of the firm, leaned forward. His voice was low, deliberate. Mr. Hastings, your work here has always been excellent. If what you say is true, we owe you an apology. He glanced at the others. Shall we restore his standing? One by one they nodded. Miranda exhaled, relief washing over her face. Welcome back, she said. I allowed myself a small smile. I'd taken the hardest road, but I'd reclaimed my career, and more importantly, my dignity. That evening, I stood on the doorstep of Clara's apartment, a bouquet of white lilies in hand, the same flowers I'd offered Jake to give back to her. My heart pounded, but this time it was anticipation, not dread. I rang the bell. She opened the door, eyes red, rimmed, and guarded. Matt, she whispered. I held out the lilies. For you, I said. I'm sorry I ever doubted you. I'm sorry for the chaos my brother caused. She hesitated, then took the flowers. Thank you. Her fingers brushed my hand. I couldn't have survived this without you. I stepped inside. The apartment was warm, scented with vanilla and lavender from the candles we'd once loved. She closed the door softly behind me. Everything's been set right at the firm, I said. They reinstated me. Her hand found mine. That's amazing. I reached into my coat and withdrew a small box. The engagement ring returned to me after Clara had collected her things from my loft. My breath caught. I know you have every right to walk away, I began, voice thick. But if you'll have me, I swallowed. I want to marry you. Tears glinted in her eyes. She let out a shaky laugh, then covered her mouth. I thought you'd never ask. I slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit. Perfect. She leaned in and kissed me, gentle and sure. The world around us spun away. The ghost of betrayal, the wreck of my career, the toxic twist of family, everything dissolved in that moment. All that remained was us. Weeks later, under a sky brushed with spring's promise, Clara and I stood at the altar in the garden where we'd first met. Family and friends gathered, smiles shining like sunlit waves. My parents sat in the front row, Mom wiping tears from her cheeks, Dad's hand firmly on hers. I caught my brother's eye in the third row. He sat ramrod straight, remorseful but present. He'd kept his promise, reached out to Clara, apologized to our parents, and gone to therapy. He'd paid the price, and he'd earned a path forward. As I slipped Clara's hand into mine, I felt the weight of every choice I'd made. The darkness, the confrontation, the moment at the tracks. And I felt, for the first time, truly grateful. Betrayal had tried to crush me, but it had only forged me stronger. I knew life would throw more challenges our way. Family strife wasn't over, and no career was ever safe from attack. But I also knew that love, truth, and fierce determination could stand firm against anything. The officiant cleared his throat. I looked at Clara, her smile radiant, eyes bright with tears. I raised my voice so everyone could hear. Clara Jane, you are the truth that anchors me, the light that guides me. I promise to protect you from every storm, to stand with you through every trial, and to love you more each day than I did the day before. She squeezed my hand. Her voice wavered with joy. Matthew James, you are my safe harbor and my greatest adventure. I promise to stand by you, to challenge you, and to fill our life with laughter and compassion. We leaned in for the kiss, and as our families cheered, petals swirling like confetti, I realized my brother's final move had been to lead me here, to the moment where I'd claimed my life back, reclaimed my love, and stood unbroken at the altar of my own making. My brother thought he'd destroyed me, but in the end he gave me the greatest gift of all, the chance to rise.